Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us here today. My name is Jennifer Valley, and I'm the Community Manager at Trivantis, and we'd like to welcome you to this webinar. We're not officially starting as of yet. We will be doing so here shortly. We're just going to have a quick little pre-webinar chat conversation with our presenter. And so I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen so we have something to start with. And Marcelo, how's the weather where you're at?
Jennifer, how's the weather? Well, I'll be honest with you, I haven't gone out yet, so I can go to weather.com and check it out, but I think everybody else could do that and see how the weather in sunny California is. I think it's okay today, actually. It was kind of nice. It gets a little cold in the morning and then it warms up and then it
What's
gets
your
cold at night again.
what's your version of little cold?
Well, anything under 70, of course.
Oh, yeah, that's what I figured.
That's Fahrenheit, by the way. For those of you in Celsius, I'm not sure exactly what 70, we can look it up, I think. 70 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. That would be 21 degrees Celsius for those of you there. So anything under 21 or 70 Fahrenheit, we have to turn on the heater in LA.
Oh, yuck.
What's your version of cold?
It is 44 and cloudy here, and this is definitely not cold. I'm from Michigan, so we have a different standard.
Yeah.
We're darn near Canada, so around freezing. Freezing is pretty darn cold for me. I'm not good with anything below that. But I remember a couple years ago we went into the negative teens, and that was not enjoyable at all.
Right, right. And my father-in-law lives in Boston and went through their snowy season there when I was there. And I got to tell you, snow looks much better on TV.
Joanne asked a question in the questions panel. Is there going to be a recording available? Yes. If you registered for this session, we are going to make the recording available to you afterwards. So you'll be able to access it with a follow-up email that you should receive within 24 hours after the session has concluded. Thank you so much for asking. For those of you who are just joining, we're having a pre-webinar chat with our host here today. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask some random questions. Let's go personal. We were talking beforehand about Netflix and Amazon video and which ones we kind of prefer. So, well, what are you currently watching on Netflix or Amazon?
Um, Actually, on Netflix, I'm about to start Daredevil, season 3, I believe it is. On Amazon, watching The Men in the High Castle, I think it's season 3, which I love that.
I've never heard of
So,
that one. What's that one?
oh, it's amazing. It's an alternate history of how World War II ended. So the Germans took the East Coast and the Japanese took over the West Coast. And in the middle of the country, there's this no man's land zone. Really, really cool.
Oh,
It's on Amazon Prime.
interesting.
Yeah, so I've been going more towards Amazon lately, just because Netflix, their originals used to be awesome, and I don't know, it just seems like they're just putting out a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
some of it is kind of questionable in my mind. What does the group out there think? Netflix or Prime?
I
Let's
am
see what they
currently
say.
watching Spartacus on Netflix. Recently got into that and somehow managed to make it into season 2 in a very short amount of time. So that's a little questionable. It's definitely adult, and but I enjoy the historical aspect of it. It's got a lot of information that not information, but just general history-esque feeling to it, which is quite nice. And then I had to go through the whole pre-Halloween with the kids session, so made sure to watch Hocus Pocus over the weekend and Halloween Town, and I've been wanting to grab Casper because I am a giant baby. I was gonna say there's also a Netflix one that I just recently finished that I was really enjoying. I can't for the life of me remember the name of it though. But it was about Vikings, and it's kind of a satire comedy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that was an original, but it was very, very entertaining.
Yeah, we just finished watching last night. And I promise everybody we will talk about VR, but this is sort of the pre-thing, right? So we're just chatting away. 22 July on Netflix about it was um, this crazy guy basically that killed 77 kids in Norway. It's a powerful movie, and it's based on a true story. Incredible movie. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but looks like somebody said that they exhausted Netflix and found CBS Online to be my go-to for now. Hmm. I don't know about CBS Online. I haven't done that.
I was really getting into this C. What is the one that the Flash used to be on?
You mean the network?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
on Netflix
I
now.
don't know because I always do everything on Netflix, so I don't know networks or even Hulu. You just watch the show.
CW.
Oh, is that okay?
The CW app was a go-to for me for quite a while. A lot of the superhero series ended up starting out over there, and they've just kind of transformed into let's keep adding them into Netflix. So family has been a
Yeah.
long-standing superhero fanatics.
Oh, I see. Very cool.
Yes.
So let's see how many people have played VR games. Anybody into VR gaming? Are you, Jennifer?
I wish I would totally be into it. I'm a hardcore gamer. I have an Xbox 360, an Xbox One, a PlayStation 4.
Wow. Oh, you can get the PSVR. In
Yeah,
fact, we're going
yeah.
to talk
So
about
that's
that too.
something that I've been really wanting to invest in because I think it's really interesting. Like, appreciated the Connect and like that kind of technology, but I'd really love to just like full blown get into it.
Somebody said, and I can't see the name properly. I don't know what's happening, but Beat Saber, which I love, Tilt Brush, which I love, The Lab, very good too. Um, I'm into Transcendence now, which is this kind of horror kind of game, which is awesome. And it's funny because I don't like horror in movies usually,
Mm-hmm.
but in VR games, I just love them because they are truly scary. But Beat Saber, yeah, that's a fantastic one. But I also been lately into more cinematic VR and trying to understand how narratives can be used or done in VR. And the Great C, as in computer, the letter C, is a great cinematic VR that everybody should check out. I mean, you're in the middle of the movie. It's an animation, but you're in the middle of it. It's just amazing that, and the graphics are just gorgeous. So you're in this world, um, sort of a post-apocalyptic world where a computer takes over just because us humans can't figure out how to get along. So the computer took over, but it's really, really good. So everybody should definitely check it out.
I'd like any recommendations to come in through the questions panel. I would be interested in checking out something that was fantasy role play adventure type of style. So if you know of any of those that I should be investigating into, please go ahead and share. That would be greatly appreciated. I my boyfriend is also into gaming, and he's currently playing in between Destiny, and he's got another one that's a fighting game. But man, do I love how now I don't love the fact that my oldest son was like, "Oh, how could you still play this game? It's so granulated and there's you can see everything." I'm like, you don't understand, that was like cool back in the day. So we all have this nostalgia feature to it, whereas nowadays I can definitely appreciate the all of the landscape and formatting and scaling and it just blows my mind what people are capable of nowadays. I always stop during a game when I'm not in danger and I look around because I love it so much. It's
Yep.
pretty.
Yep. I agree. Yep. Looks like we got more people, and we're not talking. You didn't come to the VR gaming presentation. We're just chatting away. We're gonna start what, like actually now. It
Yeah,
says
we'll
9
do
o'clock.
We'll go ahead and start the webinar here, and we'd like to thank you so much for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us here today or watching the recording. We were just having a pre-webinar chat about Netflix and virtual reality gaming and just passing the time, having a conversation with you guys. So this is the why your organization needs an immersive technology / virtual reality strategy today. And this is Jennifer Valley from Trivantis. We're going to be hosting, and we're happy to have Marcelo on the call with us as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and go through a couple housekeeping items before I hand it over. So just to note a couple of things before we go ahead and get started is that all attendees are on mute. That's just to ensure good audio quality as we're going throughout the session here today. We have the questions panel being monitored. So if you'd like to, you can ask or type any questions that you have into the questions section. If you're looking for a full-blown view of Marcelo's presentation, you can hide that GoToWebinar panel using the orange arrow if needed. Again, for those of you who are not aware, currently on the webinar, my name is Jennifer Valley, and I'm the community manager here at Trivantis. And we also have Marcelo on the call as well. He is the founder of How to Create VR, and in my personal opinion, a very awesome thought leader when it comes to virtual reality and immersive technology. He's managing a website and a brand, and he's got tutorials and articles, doing podcasts and webinars. So definitely go ahead and give his website and social media accounts a look at How to Create VR for more information on what is currently going on in immersive technology. Just so that you guys are aware, Trivantis is the makers of Lectora Online, Lectora Inspire, Scenario VR, and Course Mill. Apologize for the cutting off. I don't know why it's doing this. I'm going to go ahead and just back out of actually presenting so you can see a full-blown view of it. I apologize for opening up the back-end curtain to you. But Scenario VR is our latest a tool that we've introduced into the Trivantis family, and it allows for content authoring to provide a whole new way for creating and presenting training specifically through virtual reality. So if you're kind of mulling around with the idea of virtual reality or immersive technology and you need a development solution, we definitely ask that you go ahead and take a look at Scenario VR via the free trial that we offer. You can find that at scenariovr.com. And on the screen are a couple of screenshots of the interface. There's also some analytics capabilities as well as an app, and we can definitely use the VR headset. In the training session or the webinar session here today, we are going to be talking about strategy and how to take the idea of using virtual reality to your organization and actually bringing it in front of individuals to engage interest and get buy-in and budget and all that other fun stuff. Before we go ahead and begin, I wanted to ask a quick question for you and see where you're currently at in the virtual reality implementation process. So on your screen, you should see a poll. If you wouldn't mind answering one of the 5 different options that you have as far as where you're currently at in the process, it would greatly be appreciated. We have I'm familiar, unfamiliar, meaning that you've never really heard of virtual reality before or how it can be used at an organization, maybe just kind of about gaming or video or movies, but not anything localized. You might be familiar with the concept in general, or if you're currently in the process of learning about it. If you've gotten a little bit farther into it, then maybe you've created a sample, but not anything that you've shared, or that you've created a sample and actually published it. We'd like to know where you're currently at. I'm going to leave it open for another 10 seconds, so we have it open for that full minute. We've got around 80 people who have, or 80% who have voted. So if you wouldn't mind finishing up those votes, I'm going to go ahead and close it in 3. Hurry up. 2. Hurry up. 1. Thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and share the results just in case anybody else on the call was curious. We have the majority of individuals who are learning about it, and this is a great place for you. We're going to be leaning on Marcelo's knowledge to talk us through an understanding of immersive technology, how it works, how you can use it, what the advantages are, and a lot more conversation that is going to be covered. So this session will be going for about an hour. I'm going to go ahead and transfer over the screen sharing to Marcelo and let him go ahead and do a more formal introduction. Again, as a reminder, I am here monitoring the questions. We'll interrupt him whenever necessary, and you can go ahead and just ask away, and we'll either interrupt him or have questions available at the end of the session as well. So you should be able to share your screen now. I had to close the poll. My apologies.
I'm sharing my screen now, so hopefully you see the screen.
I can see your presentation. It's a little bit small, though. So
I'm going to go, I'm going to make it
beautiful. Beautiful.
There, is that better now?
Yes. Awesome. Go ahead and put myself on mute and hand it over.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And thank you to Trivantis for the opportunity to present here today. Welcome, everybody. I just want to make sure everybody could hear me okay. Hopefully you can without a problem. And like Jennifer said, we're going to be talking about your organization, why your organization needs a VR content strategy today. Real quick, Marcelo Lewin, the founder of howtocreatevr.com. I'm an immersive content evangelist, producer, and creator. And I like to focus my VR experience or building VR experiences on customer training, L&D, and education. VR can cover many things, right? Gaming, enterprise apps, a whole bunch of stuff, but that's mainly my focus that I'm going after. It'd be interesting to know, for those of you that are creating VR already, maybe post in the chat or questions, what is it that you're focused on? Real quick, howtocreatevr.com, like Jennifer mentioned, is a website that you can find tutorials, podcasts, and I also run a meetup. If any of you are in Southern California, then we have a monthly meetup, actually one coming up this Thursday, and I'm just going to show you real quick the website. Just go to howtocreatevr.com, and you guys can just click on register for free. And then you'll be able to see a bunch of tutorials and podcasts, so on and so forth. So you can hear a podcast and talk to other people within the community as well. So it's focused on people creating creating VR and AR and XR, basically. So let me go back to this. I do want to ask for a quick favor. Any of you, if you can, go to youtube.com/c/howtocreatevr and register, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The more subscribers I have that are interested in VR, the more presenters I can attract to create really cool tutorials. So if you get a chance, just go to youtube.com/c/howtocreatevr and subscribe to the channel. There is no knowledge of VR required for this presentation. We're starting from the beginning here, and I see that almost 50% are learning, so this is going to be a great presentation for you. Also, like Jennifer mentioned, it's a conversation, so ask questions along the way. Jennifer will jump in and interrupt me. Absolutely not a problem. I prefer to ask questions as we go than to wait till the end and then try to remember the context of that question. If a question is answered in a later slide, I will say so, and then we'll just continue. So the objectives of this presentation is to get a basic understanding of immersive technologies, to learn why these technologies are the future of computing, to learn who's using these technologies, and then to explore a possible strategy for your company and get some actionable next steps so you can start implementing the strategy. Hopefully this is what you signed up for. So what I want to start with is imagining, because VR is so cool, but a lot of people don't get it, and they don't get it until they put it on. But so I want you to close your eyes, and if you're in a corporate office and everybody looks at you funny, that's okay. But let's start imagining some things. Imagine that a technician arriving at a job, whatever that job may be, just before knocking on the door, all of the customer's personal and job information pops up in the text classes without them doing anything. It's just there. Also imagine allowing your customers to see exactly what your product will look like in their home or office prior to purchasing it. They can place it anywhere and walk around it. They can change colors, styles, and more. And once they love it, they could click on the buy button and purchase it, all through their mobile phone. Imagine pointing your phone at a hall in your corporate office or building and quickly identifying all available conference rooms, then booking one on the fly right from your phone. Imagine pointing your mobile phone at any device around your corporate office or home, such as a coffee maker, a printer, a conference monitor, and immediately getting instructions on how to use it or maintain it or change the toner or connect to it. Or connect to it via your computer, all through your phone again. Imagine again meeting in a virtual office where you can collaborate together on your next product design or show your customer what the next version of your widget looks like in real time. Imagine designing your product in full 3 dimensions where you get to not only use the X, Y, and Z, but you get to walk around and see your product from various angles. And then you can make changes to the minute detail. Imagine a technician at a job not knowing how to fix an issue. She taps her glasses and the shop immediately gets a video feed of what she's looking at and sends the technician directly to her glasses a solution on how to fix that problem. Imagine teaching all your employees from the comfort of their home or office how to deal with your customers in various scenarios in a real setting, all through virtual reality. Imagine letting your employees get a full tour of your facility, allowing them to fully explore every inch of your building prior to their first day from the comfort of their home. Now we can open our eyes and we can stop imagining all this, because all of this can be done, and it is being done today with VR, AR, MR, and XR, also known as immersive technologies. So what are all these acronyms? Many of you may not know, some of you may, so let's go through them. And we'll set sort of a base level here for everybody, so once you leave this presentation, you'll know what all this stuff means and you can talk to your management about this. But virtual reality is a fully immersive, interactive computer, here's the key, computer-generated experience. That's full virtual reality, and it is interactive. Augmented reality is an overlay of digital content on the real world. So you have your reality, and then you augment that reality with some more information. Mixed reality is similar to AR, and there is conversation between, well, what's the difference between AR and MR? The big difference as of today, this may change, but as of today, is that think of it as AR, so it's reality with augmented information, but also objects, and the virtual objects know of the real world objects. So think of, I'm looking at a table, a real table in the reality, but I throw a digital ball on that table and it bounces off that table. So they know of each other and can react to each other. Reality and VR can react to each other. So that's mixed reality. 360-degree video, many say is not virtual reality. And I'll explain in a minute why many say that. But for now, we'll still call it VR. But 360-degree video is an immersive experience using basically video. There's no computer-generated images. And the key with 360-degree video, because it is video, it's very limited in the interactivity and freedom of movement. And we'll talk about freedom of movement in just a minute. Cinematic VR is basically 360-degree 3D video, or sometimes animation, with spatialized audio. And spatialized audio means that, just like in real life, if somebody is on your left speaking to you and you turn away from them, you don't hear them as loud as if you would be having your left ear towards them. So that's spatialized audio. And some interactive elements. So that would be cinematic VR. Extended reality, XR, is basically an umbrella. So when people say XR, think of X as the variable X and can be replaced with V, with M, with A, with anything else in the future. So XR is basically the umbrella term for all of these terms. So when people talk about, do you do XR or do you do VR? Well, then you know right away that they don't know what they're talking about. right? Because XR is just this umbrella term. So there should be some extra terms that you should be aware of, especially if you're trying to set up a strategy in your company. So let's start with the basic. HMD, this is the head-mounted display. This is basically the headset that you put on to disappear from reality and go into VR itself. There are three types of HMDs. You have the desktop HMDs. For example, today we have the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, the HTC Vive Pro. There's a bunch of Microsoft MR, what they call them mixed reality headsets. But basically, these are your desktop, and these are your super high-end, meaning that they have a lot of power and high-end graphics. Next up are your standalone HMDs, and these are fairly new, actually. For example, the Oculus Go, I believe, was released in February of this year during F8. Oculus Quest was just announced this was known as Project Santa Cruz, and now is Oculus Quest, and it was just announced during Oculus Connect 5 that just happened last month. HTC Vive Focus is another standalone. The Lenovo Mirage Solo is another standalone, and there are others. But these are standalones that don't need any devices. They don't need a computer. They don't need a mobile phone. They don't need anything. They're self-contained. Then you have mobile HMDs, and this is what probably most of you have experienced. And when I ask people, have you tried VR? And they tell me, yeah, I've tried it on a phone. It's okay, but you're not going to get the full experience. At a minimum, standalone is the best way to go in, and then of course the desktop, the super high-end, is obviously the best to try out VR and get that full experience of what really virtual reality is. But you have Samsung Gear VR, Google Daydream, Google Cardboard. When people tell me I've tried VR and I thought it was okay, I go, did you try the Google Cardboard? Not that it's bad, but it's truly just an entry level way into VR. It doesn't really give you that full experience. Then you have consoles. Currently, you only have one console. Sorry, I took a sip of water there. You only have one console right now, which is the Sony PlayStation VR. Xbox hasn't gotten into it. Nintendo, I don't think they'll get into that. But right now, the only console that has virtual reality headsets is the Sony one, and it's not bad at all. So a couple of more terms you should be aware of. Field of view, this is really important, and this is what we have today in real life, is the range of vision of any VR headset has. So the larger this field of view, right, the better it is for you not to see edges. It becomes more immersive, and that's very, very important for virtual reality. So we have an FOV of around 200 degrees. Right now, it's about 120 degrees for like a Rift or a desktop. So they're looking at improving that FOV. But that becomes really important because the larger the FOV, the more immersive the experience it is. And Jennifer, I'm going to ask you if I'm falling behind in time, tell me to speed up, please, and I will do that. We have lots of slides to go through here.
Yep, I'll give you a little shout out when we're at the halfway mark.
Perfect, thank you. So a couple of things I mentioned, limited in freedom of movement. There are two types of freedom. There's they call them degrees of freedom. There's 3 degrees of freedom and 6 degrees of freedom. As you can see here, 3 degrees is basically yaw, roll, and pitch, meaning that you are not moving your body, you're just moving your head in those axes, X, Y, and Z axis, basically. And that is 360 video. And that's why 360 video is very cool, but it's not full VR. And that's where the argument of, well, 360 is not full VR, because you cannot move inside the environment. At least not yet. Maybe when light fill cinematography, which actually will shoot depth and allow you to move, comes out or it comes down in price and people can really implement that, but that's where we're pretty far from that. So 3 degrees of freedom is what you're going to experience with 360 degree video. It's very cool. You're going to see everything around you, up, down, right, left, behind you, but you're not going to be able to move forward unless you click on hotspot, but that's not really moving in the environment. That's just switching you from place to place. 6 degrees of freedom is basically 3 DOF, where you can move your head in all these directions, but then you can also move your body forward, backwards, left and right, up and down. That's when it becomes true reality, right? Because you have this full freedom of movement. And for example, full VR allows you to do that. And you'll have some headsets, HMDs, now that we all know what an HMD is, that are 3D off. Okay, for example, the Oculus Go is 3D off. It is not 6D off. The Oculus Quest, the one that was just announced, it's full 6D off. The Oculus Focus used to be 3D off, but they announced it's full 6D off as well now. And obviously the desktop devices are full 6 degrees of freedom. So that's really important to understand the difference, because when you want to build, let's say, a training experience that requires you to walk towards something, and then you don't want to use hotspot, because think of hotspot as being just transported, right, between one place or another versus actually walking there. You want to use 6D off in your experience. Frames per second, FPS, this is really important because this is what gets people sick. Anything under 60 FPS, it'll get you sick. So, for example, the Oculus Go does 60 FPS, and you can push it to 72 FPS. They call them hertz. The same thing with Oculus Quest. Oculus Quest does 72 hertz, 72 frames per second. The Rift, Vive Pro, they do 90 frames per second, which is pretty good. And they're trying to push it a little bit more than that. And this is where you run into problems sometimes with mobile devices, where it falls under 60 frames per second, then people get sick and they go, oh, no, virtual reality is not for me, I get sick, and well, you just haven't tried the correct one. And I'm telling you, 5 years from now, it's all going to be standalone, 90 frames per second, full 6 degrees of freedom. We just need to get the technology to catch up with that. But Oculus Quest, which is coming out spring of 2019, that's like the first step that really gets us into a standalone device with this frame rate, with the full 6 degrees of freedom, and it's perfect for the enterprise because the cost is $399, and this is what most enterprises are going to be probably using.
For a frame of reference, somebody asked in the question panels, what is Second Life? Would that be for the degrees of freedom? What would that be qualified as?
Second Life, but we're talking about, when you say Second Life, you're talking about like in flat, like playing the game in flat, the computer. If you're talking about in the computer, there is no degrees of freedom of you, the person, right? You're in the game and you can move. That's fantastic. But we're talking about 6 degrees of freedom when you're wearing the headset and you literally in reality are moving, and in virtual reality you also move. So it's not about the game being in the flat game and being able to move. It's being in the real world, wearing your headset and saying like, there's a button 5 feet away from me that I have to press in virtual reality. I literally walk 5 feet towards it in reality. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about 6 degrees of freedom. So I hope that clarifies that question.
She said, thank you.
You're welcome. So what makes VR powerful? There's 3 components to it. First, it's immersive. You are in the middle of the action. There is no distinction between the content and you. In this, as a creator, when you go and create something, this is key. Because today in flat, in anything you do, there is this line, right? You, for example, if you're watching a video, you created a tutorial or created a course, there is the screen that's in front of you and there is the user that's watching it or clicking a button, right? And there's this clear distinction between the user and the content. When you're in an experience, you are the content. You're part of that content. Just like in real life, when I'm in a room here, I'm not just like the room is outside of reality and I'm here. We're all part of it, right? The same thing with VR. You are the content. So it becomes extremely immersive. And you have to think in these terms when you're creating your experience, especially as many of you here are doing for e-learning. Presence. This is so important, and this is the most important part of VR, is it's the perception of being physically present in that virtual world. You feel like you are there. And I'll give you an example that literally happened to me, and this is when it clicked for me. when I said, oh my God, this is it. This is the future of computing, period. I was playing a game called Super Hot VR. I don't know if any of you have played that, but it doesn't matter. There's a place where you have a ledge, and I'm standing up in an empty room with my headset on. There's this ledge, and I had to kneel down to grab some guns. I kneel down, grab a gun, but then I put my hands on the ledge to push myself up. Of course, I fell to the floor because there is no ledge in the reality that I was in. I was in an empty room. But in virtual reality, there's this ledge. And of course, after kind of going like, what did I do, and feeling pretty dumb about this, I realized the power of VR is amazing, because my mind, when I was 5 minutes into this game, I was no longer in that room. I was wherever that experience transported me to. And this is something that is really important because it becomes experiential. Once you're done, and for learning, this is important, once you're done experiencing that VR experience, when you get out, when you take off that HMD and you walk away, you feel like you've experienced it, just like you experience anything else in real life. And that's the most important part from the learning perspective, right? Because you want them to feel like it was real, so when they go do that real thing in real life, they have memories of what they've done in VR. So I kind of touched upon this already, but why is VR and AR the future of computing? I break it down into, we're in the fourth wave. The first wave of computing was desktop computers in the 80s. I'm old enough to literally be before computer, and my first computer was a Commodore VIC-20. But the first wave was desktop computing, and that's really what started the whole information revolution. The second wave in the 90s was the internet, right? I've gone through that as well. And this is what opened all the wonderful things we're doing today. The third wave, obviously, the mobile devices in the mid-2000s. The first three waves, and this is what's key with these first three waves, is that we are computing in the flat XYZ axis, okay? It's flat computing. With the fourth wave, we're talking about spatial computing with VR, AR, and MR, right? From last year, basically, all the way to the future. Now we're talking about the Z-axis. And this gives you full control of your space via all the dimensions. And because of the Z-axis, this allows us to visualize, to play, to do work, to basically act in a UX environment that we were all born into. Think about it. When you want to exit a door, on your way out, you walk through the door, you grab the door handle, and you walk out. In flat, a game or an experience, you click on the door so it opens up, and then you're transported to the next room. In VR, we can actually act exactly like we do in real life. And that's why I believe that VR and AR are truly the future of computing, because it allows us to do what we do in real life. And I also believe that ultimately VR and AR will end up merging, and you're going to be going in and out of full reality into full virtual reality, depending on where you're at, who you're with, what you want to do. And we're probably going to have one set of glasses or whatever the future will bring, but we'll be going in and out. Some people find that scary. I find it completely exciting because you'll be able to merge all of them. Alrighty. So who's using VR and AR today? UPS is using them. They had warehouses where they created these cities, little cities, for truck drivers to be able to drive around and experience various scenarios. Obviously, that's expensive to duplicate in multiple locations. Over $1 million to create these warehouses. Then you've got to have real trucks, and then of course, what about a scenario where you have a little kid cross the street? How does the truck driver going to react? Well, obviously, you're not going to do that for real. VR, they replaced these warehouses with a full VR simulation that allows them to try all sorts of scenarios and scale quicker, right? Because you're no longer building a warehouse, You now can put a truck driver in VR, let them experience all these different scenarios, including the dangerous ones, and scale quickly. Walmart, I don't know how many of you have been following this, but Walmart is putting 17,000 Oculus Go headsets in its 5,000 stores to train 1 million employees in virtual reality about a different sorts of scenarios, like dealing with people during Black Friday sales, all the way to how to stock what they call the wet wall, where you have all the groceries, like vegetables, a variety of scenarios. They've announced that they're going to train 1 million people in VR using Oculus Go headsets. Farmers Insurance, they're using it for the claim adjusters to test out thousands of different scenarios. Again, this is safer than doing it in real life. IKEA, and you can download this today, go to the App Store on iPhone or whatever else. You can download an AR app, or you can download their IKEA Place app that allows you, and I personally used it. We just built a craft room for my wife, and we needed to get a table. And we went to the IKEA Place app and literally pointed at the room. It read the room, and she started looking at different tables. We placed different tables in the room, and then she was able to walk around it, seeing to scale how it would look in that room. And we bought it. Then we went in and just picked it up because we have an IKEA very close to where we live. But the point is that we did it not just by looking at a picture and going, oh yeah, that's really cool, but I wonder what it's going to look like here. We placed it in the room, walked around it, looked at it from every angle, above it, below it, to the right, to the left, seeing how much space there was between that table and the chair, and then purchased it because it all made sense. Volvo Trucks lets potential customers experience through VR their new trucks. These are multi-million-dollar trucks prior to releasing them. So they can go to customers and go, look, this is a brand new truck that we're about to come out. We don't have it here, but let me get you into the cabin of the truck so you can see all of it. You can experience the bed. You can experience what the controls are. Hilton Hotels, through VR, lets corporate employees experience what it's like to work at a hotel as a cleaning person, a room service attendant, and a laundry person, so that they understand how their decisions at corporate affects hotel employees. I actually tried it where I have to take a tray and fill it up with whatever a person order, like a plate of pancakes or whatever, and then you take it and drop it off. There's another experience that allows you to be the cleaning person, where you go in a room and you get to experience how to clean the room, all the little things you have to place in a room, like all the little marking materials around the room. And this helps employees in corporate understand what the employees at the hotel goes through. So when they make these decisions and they never experience that job, they understand, oh, okay, if I had another piece of marketing material that I want to put in the room, man, that's going to be now 30 pieces that the cleaning person has to throw away and then put new ones in, and that takes more time on their end. So great empathy machine. Macy's.
Go ahead and have you pause for just a second. We are right around the halfway mark, and we have a couple questions that came in, so I wanted to address those real quick.
Sure.
So this is something that actually comes up with Scenario VR as well. One of the people asked, what do you do about people with visual disabilities, such as limited vision, monocular vision, or people who wear corrective lenses? Is there a way to implement virtual reality and still have it be accessible?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I'm not an expert on that, but that is a very valid question that I think as the industry grows, people are going to have to address. I know a lot of the and I think that's going to have to be done more at the HMD level to be able to address that. But of course, as creators, we're going to have to look into that as well. Right now, obviously, because the industry is so new, I mean, a lot of the HMDs allow you to wear, I wear reading glasses and I need to wear them. So a lot of them have spacers for that. But for everything else that you mentioned, I'm not an expert in that, and that's definitely something that's going to have to be looked into. So I'm sorry I don't have the right answer for it, but definitely as the industry matures, we're going to have to address that. And what was the other question?
So the other question, I believe we're going to be getting into this a little bit later, is how the content is created and hosted
Yeah,
for compatible devices. So we'll
yeah,
be
yeah. I'll
definitely
get into that.
getting to that. Do you by any chance have any healthcare examples? We have a healthcare educational person that's interested in about either training programs or professional development. Can you think of any off the top
Interesting.
of your head?
I interviewed through my podcast and I interviewed, and I'm trying to think of maybe they can reach out to me because I can actually introduce them to the person that I interviewed that they were in healthcare. I'm trying to think of the company right now, but I just don't remember. I don't have any examples right now off the top of my mind, but if you just give them my email address, I can actually introduce them to a couple of people that are doing healthcare in VR right now, and they can find out more information that way.
A couple of things that we pointed out during our scenario VR demonstrations is that there was the Miami Health something and then another organization, and they ended up doing virtual reality to help with gallbladder dissection. And
Hmm.
they were able to train people to perform the operation in a virtual reality environment, which was a very low impact potentially to the people who would then be needing this in the future. And they saw a larger retention rate and all the other benefits of having virtual reality implemented. How about schooling system or the education field? Do you see any movement in lower ed or higher ed in the virtual reality field?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the K through 12, they're starting to experiment with that. Obviously, there's the budget constraints that a school district, my wife works for a school district, that school districts have that they can't afford to spend a 2,500 bucks on a desktop HMD. But I think a lot of that is going to change um, when we have more of these standalone devices that are very inexpensive to buy, like the Oculus Goes. You're starting to see school districts using that. I think specifically for K through 12 in education, it's going to be super big and it's going to be super important because to engage these kids, as we know, I mean, they're used to the phone and they just need constant feeding of information and entertainment or edutainment. I think VR is going to play a big part in that, specifically with like history. Is like why learn about history when you can experience history, and they're going to retain a lot more, or visualize biology, or physics, right? It'll be so much better. So I think in the education K through 12 is going to be pretty big.
And for Renee, Angie, and Kevin who are asking for healthcare, I'll make sure to do a an email introduction
Please
with
do.
Marcelo after the fact, reminding him of your interest, and he'll be able to follow up with you guys.
And I do want to actually add one more thing to that. And also, I want to ask everybody, and Jennifer, you, if we end up going a little bit over, if that's okay, if people are still interested I'm going to try to speed up through everything, but if we may end up going a bit over, if that's okay with you, Jennifer, and everybody else. But I do want to add one thing about health industry. I saw an incredible VR experience where it's made for kids, and is when kids go to the doctors and they need to get their blood drawn or get a shot, they're put in VR and they get to experience the story in VR of this kind of like there's this good person and bad person, and this bad person, and it's not scary or anything. It's to keep them entertained. But certain things happen in the story in VR that actually will affect them in real life. For example, there's a part where maybe they get a little bit of they get stung like by a bee or get burned a little bit. That's when the needle goes in. So there are certain cue points in the story that the doctor will jump in and do something to keep the person entertained and away from thinking about that shot that's coming. So when they feel the shot coming into their um, shoulder or arm, it's actually in conjunction with what's happening in VR, so it becomes more part of that experience, and they don't cry because it just feels real for them that they're in that experience. So I thought that was a great way of implementing VR in healthcare for kids.
Yeah, Renee said that she was able to watch a thing on it on LinkedIn, and the
Yeah,
child didn't flinch or anything. So
exactly.
that's
It's
super
crazy.
awesome.
It's
I
but it's
know it's
great. Yeah.
you always cringe when that has to happen. But I mean,
Right.
they say it hurts the parent more than the
Yes, it
child.
does. It does.
Let's go ahead and answer one other question. I believe a lot of them have already been taken care of. The going over on time seems to be okay, and if anybody needs to jump off, feel free to do so. The full recording will definitely be available. But the how good are the graphics right now? Are they realistic, or is it still obvious that they're computer generated? What are the advancements that have taken a hold over the maybe like the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. So, full CG is getting to the point where I think we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to tell the difference between reality and computer generated, as you've watched many animations, or movies you've seen. I mean, what they do where they replace people with sort of fake people, and sometimes you can't tell the difference, like the younger version of that actor, and you can't tell the
Captain
difference.
America. Uh,
What's that?
had the Captain America and
Right, exactly. Yeah, right,
big one for
exactly.
me where I didn't see a difference.
Right. So we're getting to that point right now, and in VR, it's getting there. But one thing I need everybody to keep in mind is not so much, oh, what does it look like today? And I'm telling you, once I put you in VR, and especially a desktop VR, you're just going to be blown away. But keep in mind, not what it looks like today, but the possibilities of this and what you can do with it. Because I can guarantee you, 5 years from today, what we look at today, we're just going to laugh the way we laugh at those big phones from the 80s and 90s. We're going to be looking back at these HMDs and laugh that way. And it'll be 5, maybe 10 years by the latest. So keep in mind the possibilities of what we can do with it. But to answer that question there's a couple of things. CG generated is getting much, much better. There's also photogrammetry, where they actually scan a real environment with a special camera, and then they bring it in and map it to a model, and then you get to walk through that, and it's super high resolution. It's just basically reality. And then, of course, that's why 360 video, many people are saying, oh, 360 video will die one day. I don't think so. I think 360 video, as it gets better also, will continue being here. And the main reason is because 360 video is the quickest, most inexpensive way of duplicating full reality, right? Visually full reality in VR. So between those, I think we are at a very good place today. But the HMDs, also the resolution has to get better. The FOV, the field of view, has to get better. The optics of the glasses have to get better, but we're getting there. So to answer your question, are we at the best we'll ever be? No. Are we good? Yeah, we are. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you very much. All right, let's
Cool.
continue. We'll do
Continue. All
another
right.
round of questions here towards the
Okay.
towards the end.
Perfect. No problem. Anytime. So Macy's is using in-store VR spaces at 69 US stores to let their shoppers view the furniture in VR. And check this out. They saw a 60% greater average order than non-virtual reality furniture shoppers. Because again, you're not just seeing it, you're seeing it in your location. Let me see. And U.S. Air Force trained and certified 13 pilots with VR headsets in less than half the normal training time. And of course, at a fraction of a cost of putting them in a real jet fighter, right? I mean, that probably just to run a jet fighter costs a couple $100,000 a day, I would imagine, just in fuel and everything else. So obviously, the U.S. Air Force is doing that. So let's talk about proof. Let's talk about data. The Harvard Business Review survey, they surveyed 394 executives at companies with 250 or more employees. 87% are exploring piloting or deploying MR. These are your competition. If you're not doing this, your competition is doing this right now. 68% believe MR, right, mixed reality, is critical to achieve their 18-month goals. Again, 68%. I'm sure some of them are your competition there. Another study, 700 executives in the automotive manufacturing utility sector, 82% of the companies currently implementing AV, AR, and VR say the benefits are either meeting or exceeding their expectations. 50% of the enterprises currently not implementing AR and VR will start exploring immersive technologies for their business operations within the next 3 years. Again, your competition is looking into doing this. And 78% of early achievers have dedicated, 78% already have dedicated central teams for AR and VR activities. Another survey of 1,000 adult respondents between the ages of 19 and 59, 80% agree that VR may become popular with the mass public in the near future, and that's happening today. 71.6% said they wanted to enjoy VR content in their own homes. Almost 80% agreed VR would become a new segment of entertainment culture, and that's happening right now. Yet one more, and this is going to hit home here for our learning folks, right? Stanford University conducted two-month-long studies on empathy. They had 560 participants between the ages of 15 and 88 from various ethnic backgrounds. They gave them articles to read, videos to watch, and a VR experience, which, by the way, you can get. It's called Becoming Homeless. It's free. I downloaded it. It is amazing. It's amazing from the education, learning, empathy perspective. Check it out. The graphics are okay. They're not the best, but that's not the point. Once you experience that, you will understand what does it mean by how VR can help with empathy. But look at the stats. People most likely to sign a petition to help the homeless, those that read the article, 67%. Those that experience VR, 82%. People that actually signed the petition to help the homeless, 63 and 66% for video and articles, 85% for VR. Again, because it's immersive, it's experiential, it's a great empathy machine. Here's another one to take home. Learning retention. Lecture, reading, video between 5 to 20%. VR between 75 to 85%. Why? It's immersive, it's experiential, and it's got presence. So these are real stats. So why should your company do this now? The technology is ready. We are not in a place where things are still being tested out, people are getting sick. They figured out a lot of things, and especially with the sort of standalones we have now, the technology is ready today. You have a lot more VR and AR resources, meaning that you can hire people now to help you implement VR and AR. They're more readily, there's a lot more developers and a lot more producers and project managers that are getting into VR and AR. You have better tools for development. For example, Scenario VR is a perfect example of what used to take forever to do. Now you can just literally drag and drop. But there's a whole bunch of other tools, and I'll go into that. But there are frameworks and tools out there that allow you to do this much quicker now. And of course, it's getting much, much cheaper to access. Before, what used to cost you $2,500, let's say you buy an Oculus Rift that costs you $400, but then you need a $2,000 computer to make it run and set up and all that. Now with the Oculus Go or the Oculus Quest and all future ones, now you can just get in for $200, and now you have people training just like Walmart does with their 1 million customers for $200. And the main reason you want to get into it now is because based on the stats that I showed you prior, your competition is looking at this, and you need to do it today before your competition does. So what are some examples of how your company can use VR and AR today? I kind of alluded to them at the beginning when I told you let's imagine stuff, right? But for example, and I've created some of this corporate tour, allow your new employees to learn about your corporate facility, let them meet your people, learn where to find supplies, where to eat, and more, just all prior to them even stepping a foot into your building. I created one. Jennifer can share it with you. She's got the URL that she can share with you. Maybe she'll put it on chat for everybody. But feel free to check it out. I actually used Scenario VR for that. And I shot it with a 360 camera. But it's extremely powerful. And this is what I used to convince my company to jump into VR, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute when I give you some actionable next steps. But sales training, don't show your employees videos of various sales scenarios. Let them experience those scenarios. You know, how do you deal with a good customer? How do you deal with a bad customer? Again, Walmart is doing something in their where they sell their cold cuts, right? Well, if there's a person waiting in line to get something, what do you do with them? How do you react? How do you address them instead of just making them wait? So let them experience these scenarios both from the employee's point of view, but also from the customer's point of view, again, for empathy. Practice using dangerous tools. If your employee needs to use a dangerous tool at their work, let them, but let them do it in VR. It is much safer to train. And again, it's because VR is so experiential, they can practice using that tool, and many have done that already, where they can get out of VR and then they can go use the tool because they've experienced it in real life or in VR. If you need to be L&D compliant, right, like for example, sexual harassment, it is not the same watching a video that most people fall asleep through or reading a document as it is experiencing sexual harassment from, for example, the woman's point of view. So create a VR experience that allows them to experience that and understand what it's like, because guaranteed once they leave that, they'll go, I get it now. It makes sense, as opposed to I just watched a video that I had to fast forward through because it was kind of boring. If you're designing for a customer, whether it's a software or a widget, it doesn't matter what it is. Create an experience for your employees to onboard them that allows them to experience a day in the life of your customer with your product. Because again, that'll help people, kind of like what Hilton did, right? Where they've created these experiences where you can experience what a person, an employee at the hotel goes through. So the people in corporate, since they've never done that job, they can understand, well, if we do this, this is how it's going to affect them. Do the same thing for your employees. If you're designing a widget, doesn't it make sense to have an experience where the designer experiences what it's like to use that widget from the customer's point of view in different scenarios? So that's another reason to use VR. Employees assessment, this is a great way. Don't make your employees watch a video and then assess them with traditional surveys and quizzes. Using VR, you just create the experience, and as they're experiencing it, you can assess them because you can get all the data on the back end and see how they did. Did they pick the right choice during this sales training? When they answered the customer, did they answer the right way or the wrong way? So you can assess them as they are performing the experience. And then, of course, if you're selling a product, kind of like IKEA or Macy's, add the functionality to see your product in the customer's location. It makes a lot more sense because that way it'll increase your sales. All right. So should I pause here for a couple of seconds to see if there's any questions you want to throw at me before we talk about how do we create VR?
Yeah, so one of the good questions that kind of follows into this is about system requirements. When you're talking about creating VR, is there anything that they should keep in mind ahead of time before they actually start jumping into looking at tools and whatnot as far as like hardware goes?
Sure. So are we talking about requirements for creating VR or requirements for experiencing the VR?
System requirements for creating, please.
For creating. So for creating VR, kind of like anything in development, you're going to need, especially VR, you're going to need some sort of higher end computer, right? So I definitely recommend, well, first of all, I recommend Windows versus Mac. And this is not a Mac versus Windows war or religion or anything like that. The reason I do that is because Windows fully supports, from the hardware perspective, VR, whereas Mac currently, unless you go into the super high-end $10,000, I think the iMac Plus or whatever they call it, doesn't really support VR yet fully. So you're going to have to basically get into on the Windows side. But from a hardware perspective, definitely if you're going to go with a laptop, I highly recommend you get a laptop with a real GPU. And the GPU stands for graphical processing unit, right, which is separate from the CPU. And VR requires its own GPU. At a minimum, you want to start with a GPU 1060. Highly recommended 1070 or 1080. And of course, if you got the budget, go to the 2080s, the new ones. But from the desktop version, you're going to need, like maybe an i7 at a minimum, quad core, 6-core better, 8-core best, 32 gigs of RAM. Again, you need a GPU. You're going to need to get an HMD, like a desktop version HMD, whether it's the Vive or the Rift. You're going to need a standalone HMD, like the Go or the Quest or the Vive Focus when it comes out. You're going to need those because you're going to be developing for a variety of devices, right? So you want to make sure that it runs everywhere. So those are sort of some of the minimum specs. Obviously an SSD, not a hard drive, you want that. It's really, whenever you're getting into creation, not just VR, but anything creation, right? You're going to need a much higher end computer. From the experiencing perspective, from a desktop version, you still need kind of at least a GTX 1060 for the user to really experience it well. But when the standalones, like with the Go, you just need the Go. With the Quest, you're going to be able to create some really nice 6DoF. And I'm glad I can use all these acronyms now because everybody knows what all this means. But you'll be able to create some nice 6DoF experiences for the Oculus Quest, and you won't need anything but the Oculus Quest. So hopefully that answers the question on sort of the creation side.
Awesome. And then,
oh, and you will need if you want to do 360 video, you will need a camera. You can start with maybe I use the 360 5.7K camera, but you can go with the Gear 360. Don't go super high end. If you're starting out, it doesn't matter. Just get any camera. You can get a 360 camera for $200. Go shoot, like Nike says, just do it. Go shoot, put something together and show people, because we're at a point right now where really you can show any kind of VR experience to anybody and people are impressed by it because, quote unquote, we're not sophisticated enough because we haven't seen enough of VR, right? For people to go, oh, this is kind of like today with the movies, right? You go and watch a movie, and because you've seen thousands of movies already, you know what good VFX is and what bad VFX is. Well, in VR, we're kind of at the beginning. So start with any cheap camera, but just do it. And people will be impressed by it, especially management, because they're just going to be surrounded by this stuff. So sorry, you were going to ask something else.
No, that's fine. That's a great segue into kind of talking about things. A couple of questions have come up about learning management systems being able to train and track. I'm going to go ahead and step in and answer this.
Yep, that's you.
Yep, a scenario VR perspective. The Trivantis product Scenario VR does allow for SCORM and AICC XAPI output. So you can essentially create a zipped folder output that allows you to then upload into your learning management system. We are one of very few, I don't believe we're the only ones now, but very possibly could still be so, that allow you to do this. So we do give you output options that are centered more towards learning and being able to place things inside of a learning management system. We do also have a hosting option for those of you without learning management systems. So you can actually have your content available within Scenario VR, and you can assign them out by user or user groups. So that is kind of covering all of that hosting questions. Otherwise, you would need some type of web server, website, something along those lines to place your content onto. But if you have any more additional questions about that, we do recommend that you take a look at the Scenario VR trial, take a look at the documentation regarding publishing once you're ready. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer those. Best way of getting a hold of us is info@trivantis.com. One of the other questions that came through, somebody said, is it possible to create 3D for an object in a 360 video? We kind of talked about that with mixed reality, right?
So they want to bring in 3D, so have a 360 video and then in there bring in 3D objects.
Yes.
There's a variety of apps. Well, there's a couple that I can think of that are looking at doing that. I'm not sure if you guys are looking at doing that with Scenario VR. But I know, for example, I think Wanda VR is the next version. They're thinking of adding that. Are you guys, Jennifer, do you know if you guys are going to allow the ability to add 3D assets to 360?
I'm not 100% sure on that right now. I know with our videos and images, they're essentially flat. So
Right, right. But I think they mean 3D, full 3D
yeah,
objects as
yeah,
opposed to, yeah, yeah,
with a
yeah.
model, something.
So it's,
Not 100% sure on that, but it's something we could definitely look into or have as a follow up if you're interested.
yeah, yeah. And ultimately that's what's going to happen is all apps are going to allow you to do that because you're not the first one, whoever asked that. You're not the first one to ask because I'll be honest with you, I've asked that. I've asked for that feature as well. I would like to add augment the 360 video with some more 3D objects that you can grab and do things with. So anyway, yeah. Any other questions there or?
Um, We already kind of touched about the accessibility and how it's not quite there as of yet, and we're pretty much waiting for the hardware or the headset
Right.
to kind of catch up, but that did come up again. So I just wanted to make sure I repeated that in case anybody had missed. Otherwise, I believe we are up to date. Somebody had asked about additional resources about creating VR. I'm going to point you in the direction of the Trivantis community. If you're not already a member, please join. It's free, and also Marcelo's website. So those are some great places to start
Yeah.
with more focused information on creating VR.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure. Okay, cool. So how do we create this stuff? So I'm not going to give you a full list where you can go and take this, but I want to give you, you need to understand the different technologies out there, from hard to easy, to understand what you want to do, what the limits are, and how do you move forward, right? So we're going to start with basically the expert level, the hardest thing to implement, which are Unity and Unreal Engine. And this is where these are full gaming engines, right? And if you want a fully interactive, fully computer generated, with 6 degrees of freedom, blah, 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 all of that, you're going to end up doing something within Unity and Unreal Engine. Excuse me, but that requires that you need to understand these tools. If you get into heavy interactivity, you're going to need to know how to do some coding, some scripting using C# on the Unity side or C++ on the Unreal side. You're going to need to have some level of understanding and ability to create 3D objects. So it's going to require more, but obviously you're going to get the best experience, right? Having said that, that's also going to be the most expensive, right? Because this is where it's going to take you the longest, it's going to cost you the most, and you're going to need some knowledge there. So that would be the beginning, right? Where this is like, okay, if I want to go top of the line with everything, you will do that, and then you are going to create native apps. Just like think of mobile apps versus websites. You're creating the native apps that are distributed to your desktops. Next up are native mobile apps, right? Kind of like using, and this is mainly for AR, using AR Core, which is on the Google side, Android side, or AR Kit, which is on the iOS or iPhone side. Again, these are going to require a bit more expertise level because you're going to be coding either in Java or I believe it's C#, or not C#, Objective-C, I believe it is for Apple. But it's going to require more expertise level in coding and in implementation. But for example, if you want to add the ability to do the place your product in my location, you're going to need to do some of this. So this is going to require a bit more expertise level. Next up is something called WebVR, and I think they're renaming it to WebXR, now the Immersive Web. They keep changing the name. But this is a set of web technologies that allow you to create web experiences that run on the web, and they could run on the web in a WebVR compatible browser, which is Firefox, Chrome, I believe, and I always forget the name of the new Windows web browser because I never use it. Which one?
Edge.
Yeah, Edge. Edge, I believe, is also WebVR ready. Internet Explorer, of course not. And So in Safari, I don't believe is WebVR ready either. But these allow you to use a set of web technologies, and this is perfect for web developers. So if you have a team of web developers in your company, you might want to start looking at WebVR like A-Frame, React 360. WebVR is more of WebVR is the interface between the browser and the HMD. And A-Frame and React 360 are the languages or the frameworks that allow you to code the VR experiences. And through WebVR, they're accessible via your HMD. But like I said, this is great. This is more intermediate. It's not easy, but it's great for if you have a team of web developers, they would, and a lot of them use React. They would just have to learn React 360 and start creating VR experiences for you. The next step down, which is more of the easiest stuff, is the 360 video hotspot apps that we have today. For example, Scenario VR, which I believe right now, and no, I'm not getting paid for this, but Scenario VR is because for e-learning, it's like an LMS, right? So it tracks all the data. But you have Captivate 2019 that announced that they now support 360 video, Wanda VR, Warp Studio, Veer, Evo, and there's many more coming out there, right? These are much, much easier to create VR content for because it's literally drag and drop. You're bringing in the video, you're placing hotspots, you're linking the hotspots to other scenes, you're adding cards that give you more information, you can assess people. With Scenario VR, you can do assessments, you can track what they've looked at, which scene they've been to, and so on and so forth. Very, very easy. I think these apps are going to be the sweet spot for most of us, especially in learning, especially as they become more powerful with a lot more functionality. For example, like we were just talking 5 minutes ago, adding real 3D objects that you can manipulate, right? And then there are other apps that do a variety of things. For example, ZapWorks allow you to create AR experiences, but you don't need to know AR Core or AR Kit. You can get started pretty simple, creating simple AR experiences, and all the way up to the ZapWorks, which is a bit more extensive in the functionality that they offer, but of course it takes a little bit longer to fully understand it. Amazon Sumerian is a great alternative to Unity and Unreal, but for creating WebVR. So think of WebVR and Unity, that would be Amazon Sumerian. It allows you in a WYSIWYG, in a graphical interface, allows you to create these great web VR experiences. And this is what's cool about them too, is you can connect to Amazon Web Services, right? And then you can get in more extensive on that. Styly, Visible allows you to meet online, create these experiences where you're actually meeting online and doing presentations to people. So there's a bunch, and this is easy. Some of them are easy, some of them are more intermediate to implement. But I think between these apps and these apps are really going to be the sweet spot for learning professionals. This is where you're going to jump in. Very few of us are going to be doing WebVR, and I think even fewer native mobile apps or native VR apps, because it just requires just a lot more resources to implement.
A great segue for this conversation is something that came in through the questions panel, and they're asking if there is any industry standards that have been established, such as the W3C standards for web or SCORM for technical standards for e-learning. Is anybody really doing that right now? Or are there any groups out there or consensuses that we're finding?
Yeah, there are groups. No, there's no one standard yet. It's because we are so new. You have the WebVR, which is now WebXR standard, but things are so new, they're still fluctuating. Think of the early 2000s and the internet, and how we didn't have frameworks for quickly developing websites and web applications. We're at that point right now. It's going to happen probably five years from now. We're going to have some sort of standards, but there's no like web standard really besides WebVR. But it's fluctuating for creating web experiences. There are no one framework that, React 360 is one way of going through that. But again, things are fluctuating. So I think that's part of the problem right now, is that because we are kind of new with VR, that your frameworks and your standards are still up in the air and things are fluctuating, but we are getting there. We are definitely getting there.
And it would be a correct assumption to say that if you are coming up with this strategy, you would want to establish a potential VR headset, a creation tool, and maybe that output location. And using those three points, their documentation for establishing standards, you should be able to really kind of come up with the best way of creating for those three elements, correct?
That is correct. And today, if you, let's say, target Oculus Go and you say, I'm going to be doing 360 e-learning VR experiences, you're going to be fine. You can use like Scenario VR or any other tool out there and create these experiences, and it'll work without a problem. Most of your desktop stuff, it's all going to work right now. But if you want to be on the bleeding edge of stuff, things are still fluctuating. But it is a perfect time to jump in and start doing it now, because as Walmart proved it, it's the technology is there, and I think where standards are going to help out is not so much in are things working properly, because things are working properly. It's going to be more in lowering cost and lowering the entry barrier, right? Because then as you have these frameworks, it is much easier to start at a certain point and not have to start from the bottom every single time you start a project and create, okay, how do I grab an item? How do I teleport? How do I move? All that should be basic stuff that, should be there. So they're starting to come up with those. But yeah, if you target, let's say Oculus Go, and you say, I'm going to do 360 video and, I'm going to use Scenario VR, boom, you're going to be fine.
Awesome. That's it for now.
Cool. So of course, after you know these technologies, you need to figure out, well, am I going to do this in-house or am I going to outsource it, right? And these are basic questions for any project, really. When do you need it? Do you have the resources in-house? What's your budget? And do you have the knowledge? That's really going to be the most important questions for you to address. In the long term, doing it in-house is going to be much cheaper. In the short term, outsourcing it, because you can get it out there and convince people. But I'm going to give you some steps now where you can go super cheap, which is what I did. Because again, we're at a point where the audience isn't super sophisticated, and whatever you show, unless it's super bad and you make them all vomit with motion sickness. But if you do it at a minimum level, you should be fine. You can impress people, and that should get you enough to start doing it in your organization. So if there are no questions on anything else I've covered, I'm just going to give you some next steps that you guys can take. And it's the way I did it where I work, to bring VR into the company and put a light on it. So I'll pause for a minute to see if there's any questions on anything else I can answer, and I'll just, because we're pretty much close to the end here.
I have nothing new tagged that needed to be brought to your attention. So if there are any questions that need to be answered, please go ahead and type them in now, and we'll go ahead and address them if they can come in quite shortly. Otherwise, we're probably going to have to wait till the end.
Cool. Okay. And I know we're way over. So what I recommend, the first thing you guys do is create a prototype. And you go, wait, I don't know anything. I don't have any money. Yeah, well, neither did I. That didn't stop me. So create a simple prototype using a cheap 360-degree camera. Go buy a camera for like, I think they're even $99 cameras, but you can buy like a $199. So get a cheap $199 camera that shoots 360 video. Any camera, just search for 360-degree video on Google and you'll get tons of them, and you'll find something pretty cheap. Use Scenario VR. And I believe you guys offer a trial, right? 30-day trial. Am I wrong in saying that?
I believe it's 15, but yes.
Okay, 15. Yep. All right, but you got 15 days is more than enough. Use Scenario VR or use any other hotspots. All of them offer trials, and create a simple experience. And here's what you need to do. Go to your office building during the weekend, because you're the one that's interested in bringing VR, right? Nobody cares about VR in your organization. And nobody will understand it until they experience it. Go on the weekend. Try to get some other people that may be excited about it, and tell them, hey, let's shoot a quick tour of our environment here, or come up with a sales scenario that you can get somebody to participate with you. Come up with whatever you want. Make it short. Don't make it where you do top of the line and you'll never complete it. Do something that you can complete in a day, okay? Do that. bring it all into, shoot it, edit it. Editing 360 video isn't that hard. There's tons of videos, obviously, on my site, howtocreatevr.com, but you can go to lynda.com. There's tons, I mean, and of course, you can just go to YouTube and quickly learn, how do I bring in the video? How do I edit the video? How do I render the video? How do I publish it now? Very simple stuff. Do that, bring it into Scenario VR, create your experience, target the Oculus Go. So once you have that running, convincing your management, what you want to do is create a VR. So now you have your prototype ready. Now create a VR strategy presentation, okay? Similar to what I created here, but focus it on your industry with stats about your industry and who's using it in your industry. Create that presentation and focus it on your company and industry. And then literally force one of your VPs, which is what I did. Well, I didn't force them, but I asked to meet with them. And it wasn't to talk to them about, hey, I want to talk to you about VR and why VR is cool. Is I want to show you a VR experience. Because I can guarantee you 99.9% of the people that you put on VR, and I put a lot of people on VR, once they're done, they get out of it. The first reaction is, wow, or oh my God. The second thing, when they're done, is like, we got to do this. We have to do this. This makes total sense. If I tell you all about it, it doesn't make sense. I put you in it, it makes sense. So, and what makes even more sense is not just putting them in a VR gaming experience, it's putting them in a VR experience that you created for your company. So it becomes very personal, right, to that manager, because now they get it. So once you get them excited, you go, okay, I have a presentation. I need to tell you what we need a strategy. Just give me half an hour and present that to them, okay? And I can guarantee you that after that, you will be approved for a trial program. This is what I went through. And I know this sounds really simple, but I'm telling you, this is how it works in VR. You can't just throw numbers. You can't just talk about it and explain what VR is and why it's cool. Even telling people how other companies are using it, it's great, but not until they try it. When they try it is when they truly, truly get it. So once you do that, then create a trial program. And the trial program should be, hey, let's create a 3-month trial program where we're going to choose 2 high-impact experiences that can be delivered in the next 3 months. So again, commit to two experiences that are not very hard to do, but that are very high impact. And make sure you deliver them within the next 3 months. Identify what are going to be those key success metrics, because obviously your managers are going to know, is this working or not? So it could be completion of assessments. It could be that the assessments were passed with 90% or above, or their retention rate is high, whatever that may be. But identify those success metrics. Figure out a budget if you're going to go internal or external. I'm always about doing it in-house if you've got the time and if you've got the ability just to do quick learning. Because with VR and like anything else, we're all e-learning developers, right? We all have to always learn new tools and keep up with the industry. This is just one more tool you're going to have to keep up with. So figure out the budget. Are you going to go internal or external with resources? If you can do internal, where you are shooting, you are editing, you are publishing, you are creating the VR experience, and maybe you need 1 or 2 people to help you do some acting or whatever, do that first, because that's going to convince them much quicker. And then deliver these projects, whether they are VR, and evaluate the success and determine future steps. We are here now in my company. So that's really the overall, and I can guarantee you, if you take those steps, as simple as they may seem, it's going to put you at a place in your company where people are going to figure it out. They're going to go, okay, we really need to move forward. Specifically from the learning, customer, the training, L&D side, guys, this is it. I mean, we're doing this. This isn't if we're doing this, we're doing this, period. And it's going to be the future. So all of us need to, not only from the company perspective, but you as a learning developer or as a learning professional, we have to do this because it's happening. And more companies, as Walmart proved it, more and more companies are doing this. There is one last thing, as famously Steve Jobs used to say, right? But I want you to again close your eyes and think back, and we're 1995, and you can use this with your managers, but it's 1995, and you're hearing that businesses are starting to use this thing called the internet. And you, as the professional, as the manager, back in 95, 96, 97, you need to decide, should we get into it or not? What would you have done? Because I'm telling you, today, we are where we were back in the 90s with the internet. And the people that decide to create a strategy today and implement that strategy are the ones that are going to succeed. All the others, just like every other company has said, no, the internet is a fad, it will not work for them. And they will end up either having to convert, or they're just not going to be relevant anymore. So that's it. I hope with this presentation I've inspired you a bit, I've educated you a bit, I've given you enough information for you to come up with your own strategy. And if you have any questions ever beyond here, I'm an evangelist. I love VR. As you can tell, I'm super passionate about VR. This is a future. Feel free to reach out to me. There's my email, there's my website, or reach out to Jennifer. She can connect us together. But whatever you need, I'll answer any questions you have now or in the future.
All right, so if you have any of those questions that you would like to have answered, please go ahead and start typing them into the questions field. We're definitely going to be wrapping up here. Somebody had asked about the price range if you're not able to do it internally. What does outsourcing currently look like for virtual reality?
I'll be honest with you, it's all over the place, right? But I can tell you, if you're going to outsource it and you're going to be doing, see, it's really hard right now because to tell you a specific dollar amount, but I would calculate, depending on the experience, between at a minimum 5 to 10 grand. It could go much higher than that. It could go out into hundreds of thousands of dollars if you do an experience that requires full CG VR. That's why I highly recommend start with, if you spend probably under $1,000 to get all the software and equipment you need to do it in-house, but it's going to take you more time because you need to get up to speed. But if you're going to outsource, it's going to cost you probably at a minimum 5 to 10 grand. Okay. Depending if you're doing 360 video or if you go into full 3D, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely learned something today. I was kind of under the impression that it would be less, but it definitely makes sense investing in all of that equipment and hardware and software, that it would be quite a bit higher. Another question that came in, which I'll go ahead and take, is can audio be integrated? And for scenario VR in particular, you can upload MP3 audio into your scenarios. It gives you the ability to do voiceovers or have background noise or just little indicators like sound effects in there. So that is definitely something that most of the different tools offer for you. So yes, it can be integrated in. Somebody else said to check out the KFC VR training.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually have it in another presentation. It's a really cool experience. I highly recommend everybody to check it out.
Yeah, and when it comes to working with those 360 videos straight out of the camera, what editing software would you recommend?
I use Premiere Pro, and that's really the best out there right now. They support, and now they just released the latest version supports 180, which I didn't even touch upon here, but now they're offering 180-degree video versus 360, because a lot of the times you may not be looking, there may be nothing behind you to really capture your attention or the viewer's attention. So 180-degree video obviously is much lower bandwidth that you need to use, especially if you're going to be streaming some of this stuff. But Premiere Pro is the one. But I believe Final Cut Pro, if you're on Mac, also supports 360 video, but they also have Premiere Pro for the Mac as well.
Not a problem, Pamela. Thank you guys all.
I was going to add one more thing on the spatialized audio. On some tools, and I'm not sure if Scenario VR does that yet, but on some tools, you not only can you upload the audio, but you can spatialize it. So you can literally put it on the right or the left, you move it around, and it'll come from that location. So that way it becomes very specialized. So then you can cue people, because one of the things you can do with audio is cue them, right? You don't want to tell them, hey, look to your right, because this is real life and people don't do that. But if all of a sudden right now somebody throws something to my right, it makes a sound, I'll quickly turn around because that's where my attention goes to. And there's something called points of interest in VR, which are when you're editing, you're trying to get your person to look at all these POIs, points of interest. And how do you get them there? You get them through some sort of visual cue or audio cue.
Awesome. And there's a question about kind of VR future where you were talking about the game that you were playing and you had to pick up the gun. Do you see that changing into actually feeling the weight of the gun or experience
Yes.
resistance
Yep.
on a steering wheel? Is there technology out there right now like gloves that assist with that, or anything that you've seen of interest to you about, future implementations?
Yeah, definitely. So that's basically haptics, and there are a lot of suits coming out now. One of them is called the Tesla, like the car, but it's not by them. It's called the Tesla suit that gives you I don't know how many points of haptics, but throughout your entire body. Not only does it give you haptics where you feel it, somebody shoots you, or if you're in a training environment, right, you want to feel that whatever you're doing, but it also has temperature simulation, which means that the suit can go, I think, down to 20 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're in an environment that it's hot, it can go up to that heat. Or if it's cold, it can go down there so you get the full experience. So haptics are huge. I didn't touch upon that, but that's definitely something that it's happening, and it's happening today. And in fact, if you want to feel some of that, any of you, I don't know where most of your audience is, but The Void, VOID, The Void, is an experience. It's what they call location-based entertainment, LBEs. It's an experience that you go and you can experience Star Wars. I think it's called Nicodemus is another experience, and then they have Ghostbusters. They have one here they have multiple in Southern California. They have them in New York. I think they have them all over. But I highly recommend go experience The Void, because you're going to get a good idea of what really good VR is, and also it's going to give you that idea of haptics and feeling. For example, Vive Pro, which has 2 cameras in front of it, just announced a couple of days ago that you're going to be able to use your hands and fingers for manipulation. So you'll be able to grab something with your fingers as opposed to using a controller and move. There are haptic gloves that you wear on your hand that you can literally put your hands through sand, and you feel the sand going through your fingers, and you feel it. So, and this is where going back to, we're going to be going in and out of reality. I mean, this is really why I think that's going to be, why that's going to come true, because you're going to have all of these things where, and this goes in deeper philosophical about what is reality and all that, which we're not going to go into. But if you pick up something, what makes that real? The fact that you're holding it, the fact that you're touching it, that you're feeling it. Well, if I can replicate that in VR, then isn't that real anyway? Because it's in your mind. So haptics are getting there.
For those of you who are interested, there's a link to The Void mentioned in the questions panel as a response. Locations include Anaheim, California, Edmonton, Alberta, Genting, Malaysia, Glendale, California, Las Vegas, Nevada, Orlando, Florida, Toronto, California, and West Plano, Texas. So hopefully something is close to you, and maybe you might want to go on vacation, check it out. It looks super cool. I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome.
All right, well, that looks like to be the rest of the questions that have come in, and since we're over on time, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Marcelo or Trivantis about anything that you have seen today. Follow him on social media, start subscribing to his YouTube channel, and you can take a look at everything that's going on with Scenario VR at scenariovr.com. We greatly appreciate your attendance, as well as a very knowledgeable presenter here today. Thank you, Marcelo, so much for joining, and we greatly
Thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Imparting the knowledge on everyone. And yeah, it was super interesting and amazing and fantastic. So we're really great to be able to have this conversation and really dive deep into it. So thanks again to everyone who is joining, and we hope to see you again. If you're interested in the recording, it will be made available as a follow-up to this webinar within 24 hours after it has commenced, so you can keep a lookout in your inboxes tomorrow. Any issues, you can go ahead and reach out to us at webinars@trivantis.com. and we greatly appreciate. Again, thank you, Marcelo, and we'll go ahead and
Thank you,
have you
everybody.
get along for the rest of your Wednesday and talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.